What's happening, buddy? This is Hayden Adams with A Designer Who Codes. I've got something pretty dang awesome for you. If I click on any one of these pictures, so if I click on this first one, up pops a Lightbox in Gatsby. Yes, you heard me right. I am doing this in React/Gatsby where I can click on any one of these pictures and up pops a Lightbox, and I can make it go full screen, hit the escape key, and go out of full screen. Now this is going to be a longer demonstration and we have to install a couple different plugins, and I will provide the source code as well in the documentation for this video. But strap yourselves in because we're going to build a React/Gatsby Lightbox in Gatsby. Here we go. So to get started, I am using the Gatsby default starter. The reason why I love this template to start off with is because it already has 2 of the 4 plugins I'm going to need to build a successful Lightbox. The first plugin I have to definitely utilize if I head over to Gatsby config is the Gatsby source file system. If I go in my images folder, we have to pull data from these 3 files right here, and the Gatsby source file system is already set up to go. In addition, we're going to leverage the power of the Gatsby plugin image to load our images, or to almost lazy load them into the Lightbox. The third plugin we got to do right now is React Bootstrap. So let's do a Google search for React Bootstrap. I'm going to get started and I'm going to npm this bad boy. Let's go over and stop my terminal, drop it in. Now, while this is loading up, I'm also going to leverage the power of my other one, which is the most important, which is the simple React Lightbox you can find at simplereactlightbox.dev/documentation. Cool, that's installed. Let's copy clipboard, this one. You know, I'm not quite sure why it's running. You know why it's running across? It's because I haven't gone far enough across. So I'm gonna copy this npm install. And while this is installing, I'm gonna head back. Oh, let's head over to Yarn because we got problems. Let's click on the Yarn one and see what happens. Copy, paste. Now we're rocking. Yes, we have to get rid of the package lock.json. So while I did the yarn and npm, I'm going to head back to package lock.json, get rid of that. And now while this is installing, I'm going to head back to React Bootstrap and come on down and find the style sheet that I have to use. Since we're only working on one page, I'm going to put it on the index page, but what you really should do is put this on the layout for more intense projects. I'll add my, actually I will change that up. Speaking of which, I am going to head to the components and the layout because there is already a CSS file there, and I want to get where I want to do on top of it. There we go. Let's add the CSS where it should go properly in the layout file. Cool. That's almost done. I can't quite run it quite yet on the dev. Oh, we are good. Sweet. Let's do a Gatsby develop and see if all of this is installed properly. Fingers crossed, that's all good, all looking green. And we should see, hopefully, maybe, after all these words, come on, building development server, you got this. All right. Perfect. I can see that it definitely utilized the React Bootstrap type, and we went from serif to sans serif. So far, so good. So now that we have both React Bootstrap and the simple React Lightbox installed, I have to add one more component to make this plugin shine. I'm going to stop this for 1 second. And if you scroll down the simple React Lightbox.dev, it has an extra piece for Gatsby. What we have to do is we have to add this section. I'm going to copy to the clipboard, and we're going to add this to our Gatsby browser file. So if we head back into our folder, and at the root level, you're going to find the Gatsby browser. And right now there is nothing in there, but now there is. Perfect. This is critical because the simple React Lightbox will wrap around our elements inside of Gatsby. So as we took a look before, inside my source folder is a folder called images. And I purposely put these inside a specific folder called Puerto Rico because I want to pull everything from this folder and make a gallery out of it. You can pull individual images, but I just find if I can pull everything from one folder, it makes it that much easier. And if I'm pulling data, it's off to GraphQL. Oh, I said that almost wrong. GraphQL I go. So what I want to do is I'm going to restart my dev server, and I want the localhost 8000 GraphQL. So if I can pull data from GraphQL, I can pull all the data into my Lightbox. So what I'm going to do is once this kicks into gear, hopefully, maybe sometime, is let me kick in GraphQL. And there we go. So what I'm looking for here is I want to find the all file. So if we head to the left-hand side, let me pull this up just a little bit, is inside this all file, if I click on play, we should have 5 components. And those 5 components we have on the left or the right-hand side correspond to these 5 images. Now, of course, I only need 3 of the 5, so I want to filter information. So up in the top where it says filter, and just so we get a better idea where we're filtering, I'm going to choose base for 1 second because the base will give us the file name of all the files. So what we want to do is we want to filter this information first of just these pictures. I'm going to copy this file name or this folder name rather, and in the filter, I'm looking for relative directory. So in filter, if I scroll down, I want to filter based upon the relative directory that's equal to Puerto Rico. When I hit play, notice how I only have 3 of the 5 pictures. This is critical when you use this technique to pull it into our project to just add these 3 pictures. Now I need a couple more things, and this is not all that I need just yet. What I also want to do is I want to pull the public URL. Because the Lightbox works based upon links, we have to have links to the pictures. So what I'm going to do is scroll down the page, and I'm looking for the public URL. Public URL, rock on. But wait, there's more. What I also need to do is I need to pull in the child image sharp because that's going to pull in the information for all the photography. So the child image sharp, I'm so sad I can't click on fixed and fluid any longer. What I have to do is click on Gatsby Image Data. This is so awesome. If you ever use Gatsby version 2, this was not available to you. But in Gatsby version 3, and with that plugin for the image data, we now can leverage this in a whole new way. I want to do a couple things to this design. First off, I want to set my heights to 600 by 900 so all the pictures are the same size. So I'm looking for height. And what I'll do is for readability, I'm going to drop it down just so it's a little more readable. I'm going to change the height to 600. So I'll do is I'll change 10 to 600. And the width I'm going to set to 900. Now this only works if all of your pictures are 2:3 in ratio. The transform options, I want to make sure it fits to a cover. So what I'm going to do is transform option. I'm going to then say fit cover, and everything should work so far. Yeah. It's still giving me trouble. So I'm just going to pull this out a little bit more. Try it this way. Let's drop this one down. Perfect. What I'm also doing is I have to set a placeholder as well. So placeholder, we're going to say blurred. Now that's better. Thank you, GraphQL, for following with me in this case. And I want to set my WebP options to set a lower file size. So in the WebP options, I'm going to set a quality of 50, just to have a lower version if possible inside of the WebP source set. Perfect. We're looking good. So now that we have GraphQL working, we have no error messages. This is really critical because if you are getting any error messages right here, stop and make sure everything is working. Do not pass go, do not click $200. You have to stop and make sure everything works. Now that we have it all working here, our next step is heading over to our index to pull the images in. So let's head over to the index, and we can close Gatsby browser. We can close the layout, and we can close Gatsby config. What I'm looking for is to make sure that there is a Gatsby plugin image at the very top, but I don't need to use static image. What I'm looking for now is the Gatsby image. So I'm going to change static image. I'm going to keep it since we already have a little spaceman sitting in here as well. So I'll say static image, comma, Gatsby image. This is where we're going to pull our information from GraphQL in right here. So I'll save this. And since we don't have GraphQL yet in Gatsby, I'm going to set GraphQL up here in Gatsby to make sure it works and making sure we're not having any error messages. So far, so good. I'll just pull this one up just a little bit. Perfect. So I can make sure I can see if there's any error messages right here. Now that I have both the GraphQL and Gatsby image, I'm going to head down to the very bottom and below the export default index page, I'm going to say export, that one's good, export const, and then page query equals GraphQL, and add our backtick marks. If I could hit the keys the right way, drop it down. And what I'll do is I'm going to set up a query. And in the query, I'm going to give this a file name. I'm going to call this one gallery. And in the gallery, we can then copy and paste all of this information. Just keep in mind, I'm not going to copy the first and the last curly brackets. Let's drop that down. And looking pretty good. Edges, node, ID, base, public URL, and child image sharp with our child image for Gatsby image data as well. If I save this, we should not have any error messages. And in my case, now I only have to worry about is Gatsby image. Let's take one thing at a time. So let's map this data out and see if we can pull all three images in. And if you're noticing, we haven't touched the Lightbox because I want to get everything done first and then bring the Lightbox in at the very end. So if I scroll down here, you know what we're going to do? I'm sorry, but Mr. Spaceman, you're really cool looking, but we need to take you out. So I take it back. We're going to take out the static image and we'll take out the static image. He was cool, but he's got to go away. Sorry about that, Mr. Spaceman. Until another day, we'll put you back in. All right, let's map this guy out. So let's say data, lowercase data, dot, what am I doing wrong here? Oh, I'm hitting the tab key. Data dot slideshow. Oops, not slideshow. That's from a previous set of notes. Gallery, right down here, making sure I spell gallery right. In a previous video, I was using slideshow, so of course my brain went right to the slideshow. And I'm going to say edges dot map, and the map is I'm going to add an open curly bracket, another open curly bracket, and drop it down for 1 second. So I should have close paren, and close curly bracket. Up at the top, I'm going to add node in this section right here, and then I'm going to add close single parentheses, and then I'm going to open it up with an equal sign, greater than symbol, and reopen with an open paren. So now I can take that extra close parentheses out, and inside of here is where I'm going to say paragraph, and I'm going to map this out. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to first add the ID. So what I'm going to do is inside the P, I'm going to say key, if I can spell key properly. Then I'm going to say equals, and then open and close curly brackets, node.id. And inside of this P tag, we're going to say the word test, and we should see the word test 3 times. Now to make sure this works, I have to make sure I open and close the data inside of these open and close parentheses by saying curly bracket data. If I hit save, no error messages, that's always a good sign. If we come over here to Chrome, we have the word test, test, and test. That's because it's mapping the pictures 3 times over per we have our filter of Puerto Rico. Since we see the word test 3 times, let's try to see if we can see the word base. So what I'm going to do is Up here, I'm just simply going to put in curly brackets node.base. What should happen, perfect, Old City, the Forest of Puerto Rico, and downtown San Jose. Now in all these pictures, we do have to have alt information. So what I like to do is I like to change the base from looking with the dashes, the periods, and the extensions to just plain text. So here's how I'm going to do that. In this node.base area, I'm going to do a couple things. At the base level, I'm going to say split. And the split is going to be based upon the dashes. So I'm going to split all the dashes apart. If I save that, now the dashes all go away. That's fine, but we have to then bring them back. So we're going to join them with a space. So period, join, parentheses, and we'll put a space in there. Check it out. So the dashes went away and they're removed with just spaces. After that, I have to split that period and get rid of the extension as well. So what I'm going to do is split, and with this one, I'll take the period and then I'll add the solid brackets and say 0. And like magic, now I have alt information. Old City, the Forest of Puerto Rico, and downtown San Jose. Pretty awesome for using split, join, split, and then 0 to make our alt information. Now that we have the alt information in, let's bring in some Gatsby images. So right below the node, I'm going to say Gatsby image equals, and in here I'll say node.child image sharp. So what I'm going to do is if you scroll down to the bottom, node child image sharp, capitalizing capital I, capital S. So if I come back up here, make sure I spell it correctly, and then I'm looking for Gatsby image data. And we can say alt equals, and of course we can take the same information here and apply it to our alt information here. And I'll self-close Gatsby image, and what should come up, if done properly, are 3 pictures. We have the Old City, we have the Forest of Puerto Rico, and we have downtown San Jose. And since we know this is working properly, I can just comment this out, and now all we have are pictures. Now, this is looking good, but I want to leverage the power of Bootstrap, and more importantly, React Bootstrap, to create a 3-column design and then click on our pictures. Again, we got to wait a little bit longer for this Lightbox to work, so I want everything set up first, and then we'll bring the Lightbox in at the very end. So if we head back over to React Bootstrap, I'm looking for the container and the grid. So how we bring in information into React Bootstrap is we say import something from React Bootstrap. So if I copy this for right now, at the very top, we don't need a button, but we're looking for 2 things, actually 3 things. Looking for the container, looking for a row, and looking for a column. So what this is going to do is, if we come back over here to our grid design, so in the components, actually it's in layouts, not components, the grid system allows us to organize content. So what I want to do in the grid is make 1 of 3, 2 of 3, 3 of 3, but make it a smart grid. So the first of these 3 I have to add is the container. So after this now build something great, I'm going to say container. And in the container is going to contain rows. And in the rows, they're going to contain columns. Now the columns are what's going to be mapped out with these P's. So what I'm going to do is, where it says P key ID, I'm going to say call. And the call, let's say LG equals 4. I'll explain the 4 in a second. The P can go away, and I'm going to say call. It has to be capital call as well. Thought I had the Shift C, but that's not quite right. I'm going to take all of this information right here. I'm going to cut it. I'm going to put it inside of the row. If I indent and make sure it's working, there we go. Indent these. Now we're looking good. Let's look at this and I'll explain how and why I put the 4 right there. So far, so good. Come back here. Now these pictures are in 3 columns. So why did I use 4? That's because the columns add up to 12. So if we do a little math in React Bootstrap, and we'll just write a note that says Bootstrap works off of a 12 column design. If I divide 12 divided by 4, what I get are 3 columns. Now here's the great part. Because we're utilizing the container, what we can also do is when it also goes right down, which looks good, which we're going to fix a little spacing here in a second. But what I want to have happen is the LG is 4. When it hits the medium size, I want it to do a 2 column or a 6 column in theory. So 12 divided by 6 is 2. So what happens is it goes large, medium, and then small. What I want to do here is inside the column, I'm going to say class name and then say py3. That's to add some padding to the top and bottom of these columns. Save. And all I'm doing is giving a little more space right here, and then down below. So what I have now are just some column spacing. And if it's too far apart, what I'm looking for is making sure it looks pretty good right here. I want to make sure they're not touching. So if I said 0, py is top and bottom, this looks much better if now what I say is 3. Perfect. I have my gallery, and you notice when I refresh the page that it kind of blurs up. That's the power of Gatsby Image. Awesome. We're looking great. We have a 3 column design, but now what I want to do is, and this is where now we can finally get into the Lightbox. I want to add one more thing. We're almost there when we can put the Lightbox in. But the Lightbox utilizes hrefs to click on these pictures. Right now they're not clickable. So this is why I use the public URL. So the public URL is the long URL string to where the picture is when we actually, let's say serve, when we actually build Gatsby. I had the word tongue tied in my mouth for a second. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to say a href, and then in the href, let's add curly brackets and say node.publicURL. And just to make sure it works, I'm going to drop it in again by saying node.publicURL, curly brackets. Let's save this. What I should see are a whole bunch of letters and numbers in combination. If I click on it, perfect, there's the picture. If I refresh the page, perfect, there's the picture. So these are all working fine. Now is it working okay? Let's take this, and I don't need to worry about this one. Let's take it out, take the A tag, and wrap it around Gatsby Image. Save. And now if I click on the picture, picture shows up. If I refresh the page, those goes away. The forests, those show up. And last but not least, the last one, it all works. Now that we have the clickable areas, now I can bring in the Lightbox for this to work with. I'm going to head back to my index file, and what I'm going to do is I'm going to type the following right after React Bootstrap. I'm going to say import and then say simple React Lightbox, comma, and then curly brackets, and then say SRL wrapper. And we're going to bring this imported from the simple React Lightbox. Cool. If we save, we should still, now we have 2 new problems, which is totally fine. If I come back down here, what I want to do is inside the row, if I add it right here, so what I'm going to do is I'm going to say simple React Lightbox, And then I'm going to say SRL wrapper. Open and close, open and close. With these, what I'm going to do is if I bring this down and I cut and paste around it. So if your rows are outside the wrapper, let me do a little indentation to show it this way. And we'll bring this one up. Maybe. There we go. If I hit save, what's going to happen is the Lightbox will get in the way of the row. So if you are using React Bootstrap, make sure that you put the row inside of the simple React Lightbox. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to move the row, bring it back, and then drop it inside of the Lightbox. That's critical to making sure it works properly. There we go. Let me first save this, test it, and come back to our Chrome. So now we have our 3-column design. A little bit of cleanup here because right now this is a little out of indentation range. Let me just save. Command left curly bracket, bring it back, and then the row to row will just expand out. And this one and this one need to match up. And now we're looking pretty good. And now if I save, now I have a 3-column design. And when I click, magic, the power of Gatsby Image with React Bootstrap creating the Lightbox inside of React/Gatsby. But as I was looking at this, it's not in the right order. I just realized there's something missing that I critically forgot to do. So if you look at it, I want these to be in alphabetical order. And if we head over to our Finder, I should have downtown San Jose first, Old City second, and the Forest of Puerto Rico third. Unfortunately, I did not sort them properly. So if I have to do this, I have to head back to GraphQL. Inside of GraphQL, if we head back towards the top, we did choose filter, but I have to look for sort as well. So if I scroll down, the last one in this different color for sort is I want to sort via fields. What fields is it? I'm looking for the base because the base is going to be the file name is what I'm looking for. So downtown San Jose, Old City, and the Forest are your base names. How do I want to order these? I want to order these by ascending order. So now that I brought the sort in, I'm going to copy sort. I'm going to come back over to my project and scroll down to GraphQL. Inside of this area, after filter, what I want to do is before the parentheses, I'm going to add, and we'll do a little bit of cleanup again on aisle 5. So what we'll do is we'll sort fields, base, order, ascending. And now that's ascending. So far, so good. Now if I refresh the page, let's do that. Now I have the right order. If I click on it, downtown San Jose is first, Old City is second, and the Forest of Puerto Rico are third. Now this Lightbox is exactly the way I want it. If you want more help with Gatsby images or Gatsby in general, check out these videos I have right here. As always, I'm Hayden Adams with A Designer Who Codes.